Alright, what's going on everyone? I'm back with a new video. So today guys, I'm just going to show you how essentially to spot a reversal, in this case in a pretty specific scenario, but nonetheless it could be helpful in others. So we're just going to go back on Russell, so on Russell's RTY's action from yesterday, and I'll show you what happened and like ultimate destinations and where we could look for downside liquidity moving into next week, since obviously today the market seems to be closed, which I was unfortunately not aware of. So my overall plan on this, before obviously having all of these this profile, I always try to look, obviously especially when we are in balance, try to look for both directions. So what are our upside factors, what are our downside factors? So if we just look at essentially upside factors, I'll pull up my plan from yesterday. There you go. So if we look at upside factors, we had overlapping value. We had a couple of low volume areas that had to be defended by buyers. Essentially, these mean that some certain prices have been skipped by initiative buying, and if bullish change is to continue or were to continue, in that case, these have to stay intact, basically. Then obviously an important thing we had yesterday, which was kind of the highlight from yesterday, was that this was an inside day within balance, which might be expected obviously, since if we look back at balance rules, one of the balance rules is that the longer we stay within balance, the tighter it will become. So an inside day could be expected within balance, and could give an opportunity for the market to either expand higher or lower, or just to fail to expand or do another inside day. So there could be a couple of scenarios there, but yeah, this was really the highlight from yesterday. And then I just gave a bunch of upside destinations if we were really looking for upside continuation. So for the upside, this was one of the setups that could occur. Obviously, as I said, I'll give both directions, but we're going to focus on obviously on this one, since this one actually happened, well, actually took place yesterday. And also, by the way, when I do these doesn't mean that a trade is guaranteed. This is just an idea of what could happen, but even if it happens exactly like this, doesn't mean a trade has to be put on. It doesn't mean that all confluences are present and all that. So I just want to mention that. So in this case, this one was very interesting. I was a bit more interested in this one, to be honest. Since we had a couple of interesting factors. One thing that we had to note though is that this high here was a bit questionable. Why? Well, because if you look at this, it was only a few ticks away from it was a very few ticks away from this the high from the 6th of April, making a bit of a weak high there, but I didn't mark it fully weak, since obviously I have this on 3 ticks and it's not very clear, but here we have 30.5, and then the highs around 30, so 31.1. So that makes it a bit questionable. Yes, that would be a full-on weak high. So yeah, there you go. So I knew that if we were to look for a failure of the inside day as we got here, I knew that essentially, even though in most cases I could have looked for it somewhere around here, that wouldn't be very high probability, since this high right here has to be replaced with excess. So I knew that essentially if we wanna get a failure of some sort, we would have to do it above this weak high and replace it with excess. So this kind of leads me to why we could have anticipated such a failure of the inside day and not a continuation, in spite of the pretty good opening here at the extreme. Well, there are a couple of factors. Well, first of all, even though we're at the extreme, this is still within value area and not very far away from POC. So that would infer that essentially rotational activity could still happen early on, which essentially we got since we had this massive reversal. Again, another thing is, if I pull up the overnight inventory, you'll see that it is mainly short below settlement. There you go. You'll see that it is mainly short. It's not the best, but it's mainly short below settlement, which is here. So I would say about 70% of the activity is below. So that means that essentially we have a pretty high probability that the initial move is higher, and it's simply a counter auction, or as we call it, a manipulation to overnight inventory. So what does that tell us? Well, that basically means that it's a liquidation of all the people that were essentially short and that made up the short overnight inventory. So nothing really strong there, no strong buying, just people getting liquidated from the overnight inventory. So if I just pull up the debriefs, essentially the final factor was that since we knew that we had an overnight repair, we knew that the weak high should be repaired, we knew that we were opening within value. Well, now two things remain. We know that if we don't find immediate acceptance above this inside day, so or below, but in this case obviously it was above, we know that all of these traders that went long here, because everyone sees an inside day. See, that's the thing with the inside day. Even if you don't look at SMC or market profile and all that, you would know, you would find an inside day. It's pretty easy to spot, even if you don't have a profile. It's pretty easy to spot. So essentially, this high, this pivot right here, this line, has a massive conglomeration of orders. There's a massive amount of orders sitting there, whether short, long, just a massive amount of positioning sitting at that high. So we know that essentially, if we come up here in this area and we don't see acceptance and we start rejecting, well, in that case we could anticipate participants to start, these DTFs, so day time frame participants, will start liquidating. On top of that, we also know that this essentially, you could pretty much call it equal highs. So we know that we have a bunch of buy side liquidity sitting above here, and the market could essentially just grab that liquidity, so all the stops sitting right there, and then pursue its move lower. Moreover, if we think about it in terms of balance rules, what is this? So if you know balance rules, this essentially is a failure to break out of balance, which was about a 6-day, kind of a 6-day balance leading up to yesterday. It was a kind of a 6-day balance. We didn't find acceptance above the balance height. Okay, well our destination becomes, well, first obviously it's the other extreme of the inside day, and then it will become the balance low. So these were all the factors. So just to summarize, how to spot reversal in this case. Well, you just gotta know your inside day rules, and obviously you gotta know your overnight rules and your essentially opening trade locations. This is really what helped me paint the picture yesterday. Obviously, again, opening value, simple repairable overnight. We repaired that weak high, balance, failed break out of balance. There it goes. So our destination becomes the low. And yeah. So also I wanted to mention on ES, I was mainly looking at ES yesterday. To be fair, I was looking at ES, just because I prefer to trade this market. However, on ES I avoided the trade, and why? Well, you'll see in a second why I avoided the trade on ES. There you go. I just pulled up the overnight inventory, and as you can see, unfortunately, A period sold exactly like to the tick off the overnight high, making it a pure weak high. So essentially all of this could have possibly been just simply long liquidation, so I really didn't want to get involved with that. So even though it worked, to me this is missing a trade for the right reasons, which I'm completely fine with. Plus Russell worked very well, so that's fine. Also, as I was mentioning, once you fail on one side of the inside day, the other, obviously the destination becomes the opposing extreme. So if we take a look at this, just remove this for a second. There you go. As you can see, the inside day low was tagged. On Russell, it did not actually get all the way there, although it made a pretty solid move. Russell moves a bit less aggressively at times. Now on ES we have something really interesting going on. It has something really interesting. So as you can see here, we have a 3-day balance above, we have a 4-day balance here, we have weak pivots on both sides here, we have a poor low here, an incomplete auction. So we can interpret this move higher as simply essentially the inventory resettling itself, since at this low sellers were really weak. Given that essentially if sellers were strong, we would just blast through that and not leave 1 TP of excess. Obviously, even buyers are weak there. The inventory as a whole is weak. So some people just call it sellers are weak, buyers are weak. I just call it the inventory is weak as a whole. It was okay, sellers did not manage to get it lower, but buyers at the same time did not leave excess. So just inventory is weak. It has to resell and then come back possibly to repair that low. We have a weak high here. However, there's something worth to mention here. So even though we have this 3-day bounce here, and as you can see, we're constantly trying to get back into it, but we constantly fail. And what usually happens here, so if we constantly fail this, you can think of these as wicks. Basically, with all of this excess here, you can think of these as wicks. If the market continuously fails to essentially provide acceptance above a certain area, and it's continuously leaves excess and all that, well, the other side is pretty much weak by itself, as you can see here. Well, in that case, the auction might completely rotate to the other side. So if we didn't, before yesterday, it was a bit less clear to see, since this profile could have easily gone higher. It depends if we could have gapped higher and all that, but now it's pretty much fair to say we completely rejected that area. The only thing that would put me on guard going into the next session would be this weak high here. However, if we open pretty far away from it, so if we open, let's say we open like below spike or right there, I wouldn't be so concerned about it since we have this core low here. So yeah, just going to Monday, I would pay attention to really where we open relative to this spike here in M. If we open below, I would look for this core low to get repaired. If we open like significantly above, then in that case maybe we'll see for long, since we have this failed POC here, we have the weak high and all that. So yeah, we'll see about that. It all depends where we open and how we react. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't hesitate to join the Discord, check out the mentorship, and link in the description. I'll see you guys in the next video.